Happy New Year. I think we're going to have a great 2023. We have lots of things planned. We have our regular walks and field trips and monthly meetings and Mary Ellen's beautiful newsletters. We got a lot going on. We're going to try and get as much personal in face-to-face gathering as we can, keeping in mind everybody's health and safety. But we started off on January 1. Pete, we have Shirley Devan has kept a wonderful tradition going for over 15 years, I think, where the January 1, we meet in a, this year we met at New Quarter Park, and it's kind of a get together. It's probably more chit chat than birding. It's every bird is a new bird, is a year bird. And so we did that on the 1st, and for 2 years in a row now, I think Shirley gets the credit. It's been at or near 70 degrees when we've done it. So it's a fun way to kick off the year. So we do have lots to look forward to, including starting off tonight with your great program. Following your program for everybody, we will have a short, it'll be quick business meeting. So I'm going to turn this over to Patty and let her officially welcome and introduce Pete.
Great, thanks, Nance. I'm delighted to introduce Pete. Pete Myers has photographed birds for over 4 decades. While the early years of his life were spent near Baltimore as a Brooks Robinson fan, he moved at age 12 from the public school in Baltimore County to public schools in Veracruz, Mexico.
Oh.
The exuberance of tropical birds was overwhelming. From there, his family moved to Nicaragua, Colombia, Uruguay, and Paraguay. He earned a PhD at UC Berkeley, studying and photographing birds in Argentina, coastal California, and the Alaska North Slope. Although his research focus shifted in the late 1980s from birds to environmental health challenges, he continued to photograph birds, especially shorebirds. Pete says, while much of my day job is about how chemicals hack hormones and cause human and wildlife disease, such bad news, but when I'm in the field or in my backyard, when I focus on my favorite subjects, birds, using photography to capture and celebrate their unique beauty, it's better than therapy, which I think we can all agree with that. Pete moved to the Charlottesville area in 1990 to become a director of the W. Alton Jones Foundation. After he left the foundation in 2012, he launched Environmental Health Sciences, a science-based nonprofit that advances public understanding of important issues in environmental health, including endocrine disruption. Check out the Environmental Health Muse at ehn.org. And I actually looked at some of the articles today, and it's really an interesting website. But I welcome Pete. Let's all welcome Pete. Take it away, Pete.
Great. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you, if not in person, at least via Zoom. I think I spend half my life on Zoom these days. I'm going to go immediately to slides.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yes.
So while people's visits to beaches are usually for relaxation, for birds it can be life or death, food or starvation, predator or prey. I'm going to tell you some stories backed up by what I think are pretty decent photographs about the challenges that shorebirds, sandpipers, plovers, willets, godwits, and more, the challenge that they surmount as they live on the beaches in California's winter after having spent the summer breeding in the Arctic. The same stories can be witnessed all along Virginia's beaches. So while this talk is about birds, and the title of the talk is, it'll come up, Bird Bedlam on the Beach. One of the key characters in this story is the mole crab. I hope some of you have dug up mole crabs with your kids on Virginia's beaches. Now, mole crabs, also called sand crabs, are members of the genus Emerita, is an amazing animal that lives in the wave wash zone of sandy beaches all around the world. It's unlike most crabs, you know, They don't run over the beach or lurk somewhere on a rocky intertidal. Instead, they bury themselves in the sand underneath the waves. They then gather energy from the food by filter feeding, detritus, plankton, etc., out of the receding waters. They then, and that detritus, that food becomes energy, which makes them a much sought after prey after by birds that fish, hunt, much sought after birds and after prey. Now I can get it right. Much sought after prey of birds that want to benefit from the energy that the sand crabs or mole crabs have made out of the food that they ate. Birds like sanderlings catch them as the waves recede. Fish capture them as incoming waves flood their habitat. Surf scoters go after them when big waves crash way up on the beach. Their threats from predators never cease. And the bedlam unfolds when a lucky shorebird, like a sanderling or a black-bellied plover, captures a large mole crab. Nearby birds of multiple species all want the energy spoils of that crab. That's the food that enables their survival. Will they be able to migrate north in the winter for the next breeding season? How many mole crabs they catch is vital to that challenge. And then there's the bedlam. The key to bedlam is whether a mole crab is small enough to be swallowed immediately or too big. If it's too big to be swallowed, it unleashes a wild fight for this highly prized food item. Big is good because it means a lot of food, but it's bad because it leads to wild chases, frantic flights, and pugilistic attacks all erupt on the beach. One bird wins, others lose. Overlay upon that, the predators like peregrine falcons that eagerly pursue the shorebirds as prey. Life on the beach is never calm for a bird, never relaxing, even when it seems like it's just roosting at the high tide. It's full of danger and turmoil, but most survive to the end of the winter.
Pete, I'm not sure your slides are progressing. I think we're
No,
still
they're
on.
not.
Okay, good.
Just about,
Good. All right.
It's a short prelude.
Okay, good.
Okay. But most of them survive to the end of the winter and make the northbound migration. How's that? You got
That's
a new
good.
slide?
Thank you.
So this is the area where these photographs are from. You can see San Francisco in the lower right. And then this is Point Reyes up here. I hope some of you have had the fun of being on Point Reyes. This is Limantour Spit, which is where most of the photographs are from. And this is Bodega Bay up in the far north. Can you see the cursor? That didn't. Well, the red arrows point to Point Reyes National Seashore and Limantour Beach, and also to Bodega Bay. Bodega Bay is where I did my PhD on shorebirds. So this is a closer look at Point Reyes. And you see the two esteros, Drake's estero and Limantour estero. They are key geographic features here for the shorebirds, because what happens is as the tide comes in, it forces the birds out of the mud flats that they're in the esteros and onto the beach, Limantour Spit and North Beach to the left. The other site, Bodega, has a similar harbor, estero, and beaches that surround it. And there too, there's a tidal cycle of birds moving at high tide to the beaches and at low tides to the harbors and esteros. Here's that photograph I began with. What's happening here? Well, this is dawn on Limantour Spit, part of Point Reyes. This flock of sanderling had been attacked about 10 minutes before by a peregrine. For about 5 minutes after the attack, they spun frantically around it in a very tight flock, but now they were beginning to relax and they were about to land. That haze there is spray from the surf caught in the dawn light. While peregrines hunt at all times of daylight, just after sun up and just before sunset create really advantageous light conditions for them. They usually attack with the sun at their back. So stepping back, all the frenzy on these beaches in winter that you will see in subsequent photographs are driven by the need to feed and to survive. And the bedlam is interwoven with 5 key cycles. First, there's the wave cycle. Wave comes in, wave goes out. They get about 4 to 8 seconds to hunt in the wave wash zone every 10 to 15 seconds. There's the tidal cycle. High tide to low tide is about 6 hours. Is it 6.5 hours? So high tide one day to high tide the next day is a little bit over 12 hours. And the birds have to adapt their lifestyle to this ever-changing tidal cyclicity. There's the diurnal cycle, day-night. And because the tidal cycle is not an even 12 hours, every day the high tide comes an hour later. And birds have to adapt their feeding strategies to that reality. There's the lunar cycle, which means that, which contributes to this shift in the timing of the high tide from one day to the next. And lastly, there is the annual cycle, where they're on the breeding grounds in the Arctic and on the wintering grounds, in this case, in California. This is the mole crab. Right now, it's buried its butt in the sand, and it's sticking its head out and extending its antennae, those fluffy things, to get plankton and detritus out of the receding wave water. That's where the energy comes from. And I can tell some really interesting stories about the biomechanics of these things. There's literally a laboratory at University of California, Berkeley, that's building a artificial hole digging machine patterned after how the mole crabs get their butts down into the sand. Now, I showed you this. If you look very closely, I'm putting the cursor on the eye. There's an eye stalk here, and this is the wave wash zone on Limantour Beach. Can you see the paired stalks of eyes poking out of the sheen zone, the water that's moving back? Can you see those? Can anyone see them? This is a pair here. There's a pair there. There's a pair there. What you don't know is that, probably you don't know, is that as you're walking along a sandy beach with mole crabs in them, there are thousands, if not millions, of eyes watching you walk along the beach. Okay? Changes your perspective. Can you all hear me? Could someone please tell me yes or no?
Yes, we
Yes,
can hear you. Fine.
yes, sounds good.
I'm not seeing this slide with the mole crab though.
Well, the mole crab was this slide. This is a slide where with eye stalks sticking up in above the water.
Oh, that's what we were.
There are about 100, well, maybe 50 mole crabs there. Each pair of eye stalk is a mole crab. Can you see that?
I guess so.
Can you see my cursor?
No.
Whoops. Well,
The
I'll show you.
cursor is very, very small.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, I don't know how to make it bigger. Anyway, so this is the major prey item on the beach, but there are others. This is a type of shrimp that lives in the upper part of the beach, and this is also much sought after prey by a number of different species. So here you have a mixed flock of sanderling and dunlin at high tide. At very low tides, as I said, all species are on the mudflats in the estero and the harbor. As the tide comes in and the sand crabs start to feed, sanderlings fly out to the beach. Once all the mudflats are covered, almost all the shorebirds are on the beach. Most dunlins and other species are roost in flocks and do a lot less feeding than sanderlings and black-bellied plovers. Here is a sanderling. He's just been very lucky. He just caught a mole crab. In fact, he's running up the beach. He's running away from his conspecifics or other sanderlings because they all want to eat that mole crab. Here's one flying away. it's very active. Like I said, it's bedlam on the beach. But there's this other layer of activity. Here's a peregrine taking off after a flock of sanderling. This is a flock of semi-palmated plovers, calm, loose, far apart, not a worry. This is a flock of sanderlings in Dunlin being chased by that peregrine. If you look at the left side of that ball of birds, in the back at about 9 o'clock, you'll see wings that are fuzzy. That's the peregrine after having just passed through the flock and not caught anything. Can you see that? So here's what happens to the bird flocks immediately post an attack. They get really tight. They fly frenzily. They whirl. They go out. They go up. They go down. It's really wild. But then afterwards, like I showed in the opening image, they'll gradually spread out and calm down. Peregrines are not the only thing on the beach. You've got ravens that eat a lot of dead stuff from the beach. As you can see that it's just, see that red dot on the upper right of its bill? That's a morsel of meat from whatever it was eating. Here's a raven cruising above, and here's a raven crashing down on a glaucous wing gull juvenile about to take the western grebe away from it. The western grebe washed up. A lot of stuff washes up on the beach, attracting vultures and ravens. And the raven won this particular fight. Pelicans wash up on the beach. Gulls want to eat it. Turkey vultures line the beach. Here's a mixed flock of ravens and turkey vultures eating a dead northern fulmar. You probably can't see the tubes on the noses of that fulmar, but that's what it is. Back to the saga of the mole crabs. Surf scoters live right at the edge of the crashing waves, and they dive to get the crabs while the water's over them. There's one diving. And here they are gathering right at the top of a wave, waiting for the next opportunity. Sometimes in a really big wave, the surf scoters will wash way up with the wave and get into the zone right beside the sanderling and the black-bellied plovers. Another beach bird around Point Reyes is the willet. Striking white and black wing patterns. They go after mole crabs like crazy. And they do it by running down the beach, not as fast as a sanderling, but they're poking with their bills open into the area where the mole crabs are. What happened? Marble godwits, while they spend most of their time in muddier places, particularly at high tides, they'll come out onto the beaches. And they'll shove their beak right down to the base of the bill, reaching very far into the sand to find mole crabs. Dunlins come out at higher tides. They don't spend a lot of time feeding, but they do prance around, dance around. And sometimes they find little pools of water behind the berm of the beach and go after animals living near the surface of the sand. Least sandpipers, I don't think I've ever seen a least sandpiper feeding on this beach, but there can be 1,000 or more on them at the very high tides when all the birds are forced off the mud flats. Another least sandpiper. Black turnstones are common here, particularly feeding at the high end of the wave wash zone, picking invertebrates out of the rack of algae that's been washed up onto the beach. Western sandpipers are very abundant here. Again, they don't feed much except under special except like the Dunlin when there's a bit of standing water on the beach. Now here's a snowy plover. Snowies spend a fair amount of time on the beaches, mostly roosting. They too fly into the mudflat area, but what they often, they often perch in depressions in the beach created by rivulets of waves or by horse tracks. And it's really fun to see 30 snowy plovers scattered about, all with their own horse footprint. Semi-palm plovers, this one had just thrown up a pellet, which the stuff they can't digest, they regurgitate and spit it out. This is a black-bellied plover. Now, that's a black-bellied plover in the summer in the breeding ground. Americans foolishly call black-bellied plovers black-bellied plovers, even though they never see the adults in the breeding season. I was in Barrow when I took that 30 years ago. Brits call black-bellied plovers gray plovers because they always see them in the winter. Gray plovers are going after mole crabs. If you see the ripples to the far right of the image, those ripples are formed by the upper part of the mole crab sticking it out into the water. And what they do is the plovers walk along and peck at the surface and plunge their beaks in. And here too, if you can see it, you see there are lots of little sticks sticking up that are very short. Those are eye stalks, pairs of eye stalks that are on a mole crab, as most of its body is in the sand. They go deep when they can, and sometimes they miss. But they keep going, and then they catch one. That's a mole crab in that black-bellied plover's beak. And now what he's doing, it's too big for him to swallow, so he knows he's got to watch out for competitors who will try and take it from him. But he's running up to the top of the wave wash zone and is going to start picking that mole crab apart. That's what's happening right now. And if you look right beneath the beak at the bump on the sand surface, you can see two mole crabs and their eye stalks. Can you see those? Right beneath on the surface of the sand. And they start to pick it apart, and they carry it up the beach further and they pick it apart. And then what's happening here is this sanderling sees that the black-bellied plover has a mole crab that he's partly dissected. The sandpiper has no chance whatsoever of taking the mole crab by force from the black-bellied plover, but he's going to sit and wait until the plover makes a mistake. He just goes around in different sizes. When this is happening, he will chase other sanderling away from this plover. And he's getting a little bit closer, and something spilled out, and then, miracle of miracles, the black-bellied plover detects there's another black-bellied plover coming toward it. And these plovers defend linear territories along the beach, and they won't let each other into their own space. So this black-bellied plover is, after just having caught the mole crab, is about to fly after the black-bellied plover that's going by. And when they do this, there's an awful lot of noise coming out of both plovers. They take off. There he's calling, typical black-bellied plover call, as some of you I'm sure will know. And he chases that bird away, comes back to land. Beautiful view of the black axlers, the armpits of the wing pits of the bird. He lands, but guess what? The sanderling has made off with the remains of the mole crab. Sanderlings, when they're on the upper part of the beach, the sand looks a little bit drier here, are hunting for that shrimp-like thing that I showed you a picture of before. And he spots one, and he grabs it. I trust you can all see the shrimp-like organism. It's called a beach hopper by some people. And the sandling is going to grab it, going to take it. And I want to show you a close-up here because you can see the serrations on the beak, the inner beak of the sanderling, which help make sure that the crustacean doesn't escape. He's going to eat it. So now he's going to go back down to the wave wash zone, begin looking for Amarita again. He finds one. And this one, again, is too big for him to eat, although he gives it a good try. We can't make it quite down fast enough. And this is another sanderling that's right next to him. And this is a sanderling in a display posture, showing the other one that this is his territory. You see how the tail is lowered and the wings are lowered, so you can really see the black front end of the wing. And you can see that he's squeaking loudly. That's a classic territorial posture of a sanderling on the beach, defending its territory from other sanderlings. And we've banded these birds many times, and territories like this will last a week or more, and he'll come back to the very same 10-meter, 20-meter stretch of beach and defend a territory border that's hardly moves at all, even though there's no distinguishing features marking where the territory boundary is. Another variation on the posture of a territorial sanderling. Feathers are thrown way up to try and make him look big. This guy's got part of a sand crab, probably caught by a plover, eviscerated, and he's running along. And if you ever need to answer the question, when sanderlings run, are both their feet ever off the ground simultaneously? There's your answer. A lot of chasing. This is more bedlam. It just happens all the time. You find a flock of sanderlings near an Amarita patch, and there's going to be bedlam. Some of these Amarita patches can have 10,000 Amarita in a few square meters of sand. They can be very thick. Even better proof that sanderlings can run without having a foot on the ground. And here he's pivoting, turning around, going. Just movement keeps going. Now they're getting pugilistic, with two of them about to team up to get the morsel of sand crab that's left, and they fight. It can be fierce. They make a lot of noise when they do this too. You can see the one on the right is squeaking, and the one in the center is going to land on the others. And they pivot, and now the one landed and the other's running away. A little bit of pirouetting here. When I took this photograph, I didn't know that I had caught this posture. I'd never seen this posture. It happened so fast. But when I processed the images, I found it. This is a sanderling with an extreme form of this effort to make him look very big to his competitors. More fighting. And this one's going to take off with the partly eviscerated mole crab. Fights over mole crabs are only one source of the bedlam. You're seeing here the other main source, which is these guys waited just a little bit too long at the base of the wave when they ran down, and now the wave came in faster and they're having to fly up to the top of the beach. Sometimes their movement to the top of the beach is a bit more leisurely. These are 3 amigos. They roost at high tide on the beach sometimes. Here you can see 3 actually there's 4. You can't see the one behind. But if you look closely, you can see that they're in the middle of a sandstorm. Wind is probably 20, 30 miles an hour, and they're being pelted by the grains of sand. Sometimes the run up from the base of the waves is leisurely, so they can hop on 1 foot. Flocks get big. They usually stay tight at high tide, probably a predator avoidance play. This particular flock was one I had been sitting beside for an hour. So they more or less began to accept me. And then a wave pushed them up higher, and they started to run towards me, and they had to decide which way to go. Do they go to my right or they go to my left? And you can see the ones on the right are going to my right, and the ones on the left. So I got in the middle of this beautiful flock of sanderlings when they were forced out of their high tide roost by a wave. Other birds roost at high tide as well. These are young, first winter western sandpipers. Least sandpipers roost at the high tides. Dunlins roost at the high tides. I love this photograph because they were roosting, and as sandpipers often do, they roost on one leg. And in this case, a wave forced them to leap up out of the way of the wave, and they didn't bother to put the other foot down. Here's a photograph I was expecting earlier. This is a snowy plover in a horse footprint. And a snowy plover hiding behind a little mound of sand created by running waves. And a semi-palm plover also roosting at high tide. Willets and marble godwits can roost together at high tide. The other main activity at high tide is bathing. This is a willet kicking up a storm as it splashes its wings while bathing. It can get very frenetic. Marble godwits also bathe at high tide. This is an interesting photograph because it shows a special feature of shorebird bills, of shorebirds who belong to the sandpiper godwit tribe. You see how the upper beak is bent? He does that with a tendon that stretches from the tip of his upper beak back to behind his ears. And when he pulls on the tendon with his muscles, it bends the beak up. And they use that not just when they're bathing, but they use that when they've got their beak way into the sand and they detect a prey item. They can open the beak of the tip of the beak. Their bathing rituals sometimes resemble orgies. Sanderlings do a lot of bathing at high tide. And they preen. This is not a great photograph, except for the fact that it's showing a sanderling eject a pellet of stuff it couldn't digest. That's what that lump of stuff in the lower, to the lower left of the bird's head is. More sanderling ballet. So that's Bedlam on the beach, and I thank you very much.
Pete, that was incredible. Those photographs are just dazzling. Do you have them in a book or?
I am producing, I've been asked by the magazine Natural History, American Museum of Natural History. I've been asked for a manuscript with these photographs.
Unbelievable.
I do sell the photographs. And if I had enough interest, I could make some custom books out of them as well.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, all the feather studies are really stunning. Really, really great. I think you may have, do we have questions, Patty? Do we have anything in the chat?
Got 14 questions in the chat.
Okay.
Do you want me to open the chat
Uh,
or do you want to ask me?
I see stunning photography, beautiful photography. Then what kind of camera do you use?
Most of those, there were 3 generations of cameras. The first was a Nikon, whatever. Then the second was another Nikon. But 2 years ago, I switched to Sony, and almost all of them were Sony Alpha 1s. The way I can do this is I use stealth
Mhm.
and knowledge of what the birds are about to do. And I
Mhm.
get very close as I can. And this Sony Alpha 1 is a revolutionary generation of camera for a couple of reasons. But the most important one is that it knows how to focus on the eye of a bird fast. Now, this wouldn't work if I didn't know what the birds were going to do. Okay. Because typically a lot of those photographs, particularly the ones of the running sandlings, those black-bellied plovers, etc., those I did by being really quiet, getting as close as possible, getting ready, knowing this bird was about to run. But before it started, I started the 30 frame a second camera clicking. And that's what meant I was able to catch. Remember that one with the back way up? And I said I didn't see it when I took it. That was in the middle. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't known the birds so intimately. I've taken literally that photograph and most of the running sandling ones I took in 3 days in 2021. I took over 10,000 images. It then took me 10 months. Excuse me, 10 weeks to throw out all the chaff and bring you the glory. I am in awe of what this camera allows me to do. So, but it's not just like you couldn't do it just with the camera if you didn't know birds.
Right, right. I have a question about, oh, go ahead. Did I interrupt?
Most of them were from a Sony Alpha 1 with a 200 to 600 millimeter lens.
Okay.
And I'm almost always on the ground, lying down or using a tripod.
Wow.
So,
we have a lot of great photographers between the Bird Club and the Master Naturalists. Unfortunately, all of that is more information than I can digest, but I know that means a lot to our photographers. They're really stunning. So there are many of these beautiful photos, absolutely wonderful, fascinating talk, amazing photography. So you're, okay, here's one. What happens if the sanderlings get caught in the waves? So we see them avoiding wave action.
I've never seen that happen. And I've spent thousands of hours on that beach watching sanderling since I first went to that beach in 1976.
That was going to be
interesting. Kathy, you have something?
I was just going to say that was going to be my question about how many hours, for this, I guess each session, you must spend many hours.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Like I said, I have to cleanse my head of bad thoughts. Really well.
Mole crabs seem to be of utmost importance. So what is the status of the population of mole crabs? I mean, we hear about so many shorebirds who are suffering from lack of food. So how are mole crabs doing?
To my knowledge, there are no population estimates. There are so many mole crabs. When they have the life cycle of mole crab is they start to form eggs. The big females start to form eggs in the winter. In the fall, and they cast the babies out into the plankton, and they spend 2 or 3 months in the ocean just swimming around. Then in April, they settle out onto the beach and they immediately begin to grow. When they arrive on the beach in April, they are probably 1/4 of an inch long instead of the inch plus that the big ones are in the fall. And there can be over 10,000 per square meter
Oh my.
on beach when they settle out of the
Wow.
plank.
Hmm.
Obviously, not all of them live, but I'm very curious to see what Limitor is going to be like. I'm going there tomorrow.
Oh my.
And it's suffered humongous waves in all the storms that
Hmm.
that struck California in the last month. I don't know what I'm going to find.
Wow.
You have
Amazing.
lots of sand crabs, mole crabs on your beaches.
Mhm.
They live all over the world on sandy beaches. And
Mhm.
there are stories like what I showed you today all over the world.
I like, a bunch of us like to go to Grandview Beach in Hampton. Right now, tons of sanderlings and Dunlin. I can't say I've ever seen the pairs of eyes, but maybe I'm not looking closely enough.
Well, that's it.
I mean, if we look closely enough, will we see those?
Look at a bare patch of sand with your binoculars.
Okay.
I'll tell you about this. This wasn't known until I was
Okay.
used to late in my ornithological career. I studied sanderlings and mole crabs in Peru. And I was on a huge, I don't know, 10-kilometer long beach, and I didn't see a single sanderling. I was very disappointed. But I had a tripod with me and a spotting scope. And so I happened to put my spotting scope down on the sheen zone, that place where the water's just barely moving. And I saw the eyes. That's how I discovered it. So when I got back to Limitor, I immediately found them. Most people who study invertebrates don't carry binoculars. People who study birds don't look at bare beaches.
Right.
So
Yeah.
something weird have to happen to bring those events together.
Well, the challenge is on. That's going to be my new mission.
If there are mole crabs there, you will see the eye stalks.
Okay.
Actually, and have you ever caught mole crabs?
Not that I recall.
You just look to where sanderlings are running down to the base of the waves.
Yeah.
Go down there right as the wave starts to recede, and just take a scoop of sand.
Okay.
Where
How far down are they?
Oh, they're right at the surface because they've had their eye stalks.
Their eyes up. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Another part of the life cycle of the diurnal cycle, or no, the tidal cycle of the crabs is as the tide comes in, every once in a while they will pop up into the water column and roll up the beach and settle down at a higher level, so that they're always they've got wave wash zone there with them.
That's great.
So there's a question about Outer Banks mole crab population seemed way down, and so was the bird population. I hadn't heard that. I don't know. The mole crab population on Limitor has been, there've been lots of them every time I've been out there. But I'd also spent time studying horseshoe crabs in Delaware Bay, which the population of which has plummeted immensely because of a variety of commercial uses of horseshoe crabs. My first article in Natural History was entitled, which I published in 1986, was called Chaos, Sex, and Gluttony on Delaware Bay. And it was about all the birds eating horseshoe crab eggs and the mating of the egg of the crabs, etc.
Oh. I see another question here. If you shoot 30 frames a second, do you put together any video of the Bedlam?
I haven't, but I'm going to. The Alpha 1 actually also has video capabilities, and I won't use the 30 frame a second approach. I'll use the video. I'm actually meeting a film crew out there this week.
Wow. Here's another one. Before your formal presentation started, you mentioned a place in South Carolina where you saw thousands of whimbrels. Can you please tell us where that was?
Yeah, it's Deveau Bank, Deveaux. And if you look that up, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Here's a National Geographic quality presentation. Thanks very much for the depth of your presentation. You made there's a lot of exceptionals and exclamation marks in the chat room.
Thank you. Thank you.
There it
I'm
is,
really
DeVoe.
pleased to learn from people that they appreciate this work.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
was exceptional.
So
Uh,
the word DeVoe, that's DeVoe Bank. If you Google DeVoe and Wimbrel, you will come across a Cornell Lab of Ornithology video about this phenomenon. It
good.
was discovered 4 years ago, and
Mhm.
DeVoe Bank can have as many as 20,000 Wimbrel on it, and it's only 2 miles long.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
great.
Unfortunately, when I went there in May, it was a very stormy time period, and the waves were breaking over DeVoe Bank and washing away all sorts of bird nests and
Oh,
making it impossible for the Wimbrels to come in the numbers they usually come. So I only saw 2,000 Wimbrels instead of 20,000 Wimbrels.
still pretty impressive anyway.
Most I'd ever seen in my life.
Let's see, any other questions, anybody? Don't see any others. Anybody else? So you have to ask, do you have a favorite shorebird? I guess sandwilling?
Each has its own unique
Mhm.
features. I guess it would have to be sanderling, buff-breasted sandpiper, and petrel.
Yeah. Both breasted is my favorite, yeah.
I studied them in Argentina and in Alaska. I actually have an article. Any of you remember the old American Birds magazine from Audubon called American Birds, published until the mid-1990s? I had a cover story on buff-breasted sandpipers, the title of which was Sex, Lex, and Buff Breasts.
That's great.
Their mating system is called a lek.
Oh, yeah. There is, I see another question's popped up. When you lived in Veracruz, did you participate in raptor migration? Some of us we went to Veracruz this October and got dazzled.
I lived there for 2 years and witnessed the hawks going over both falls. But I would approach it much differently now. I was 12, I was 13, I was 14.
Yeah.
I didn't have a big birding background.
Well, some of us went in October and we were lucky enough to see, we had a 1 hour period. We have the eBird list for it with 143,000 birds in an hour.
Yeah. Is that
100,000 Swainsons, and I mean, it's just jaw dropping, really jaw dropping.
I got to watch Swainson's land in Argentina on the Pampas.
Oh, fun.
I spent 18 months doing shorebird research down there.
Oh yeah, that's cool. That's great. Anybody else? Any more questions for Pete? Going once, going twice. Pete, that was awesome. It was really stunning. We learned a lot and they were just absolutely dazzling photographs. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. We're going to have a very short business meeting and we'd love to have you stick around. Maybe we'll talk you into coming to Williamsburg if you hear all the fun things we do. Please feel free to join us. Let's see. We do have coming up, our next activity is Saturday, and Saturday is a double header. So George, are you out there and would you like to say a few words about our field trip on Saturday?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I got a new laptop and camera and microphone aren't set up right now. I'm trying to do it on the fly, didn't work. So that's why my picture is blank up there.
Okay.
Saturday is going to be the field trip to Dutch Gap. Rose Ryan is going to lead us. We'll meet at the parking lot for the Henricus Park at 9 a.m. eBird reports over the past few days are still showing 12 species of ducks and a couple of other waterfowl. So I'm expecting to have a good representation of birds out there. Temperature is going to be in the 40s, so not terrible. And doesn't look like it's going to be raining either. So come on out at Dutch Gap. We're not organizing any carpools for that one. So, and there's plenty of parking at the park.
Great.
Then
That's
coming up in February, questions? Next one I'll just mention in February, this would be February 18th. We're going to be watching birds from the viewpoints along the York River. Rexanne Bruno is going to lead us for that one. And there'll be more details coming out prior to the event. I'll start a couple weeks ahead of time. And we've just lined up the field trip for March, which is again March 18th. And Dave Euchre is going to lead us at Machicomico State Park. We had a good time there last year and see if we can do that again.
All right. Thank you so much. That's 3 great trips coming up. George does a terrific job of getting us to the best places. So these are real favorites coming up. Dutch Gap, it's just always a terrific show of winter waterfowl that you can see up close and personal. So, and I think last time I was there, my Wilson snipe count ended at about 18. So you get your share of Wilson snipe while we're there too.
It's been reported on eBird. So
Yeah.
they're there.
Good. So the second part of the doubleheader on Saturday is Saturday night. Scott Hemler, are you on call
Hello,
here?
yes, I'm here.
Hi, Scott.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Yes, the second doubleheader on Saturday, this coming Saturday, is an owl prowl. We are going to do an owl prowl at New Quarter Park this Saturday evening between 6 and 8 p.m. We're going to meet in the parking lot at our usual Saturday bird spot. And we're going to see what kind of owls that we could hear and maybe see, and what other kind of nighttime critters we may run into when walking through the trails at New Quarter. So yeah, this will be a first. It'll be kind of fun. And we'll see what we hear and possibly see out there on our owl prowl.
Great. And you want to mention the upcoming bird walks while we got you?
Yes. Then a week later, the 28th, January 28th, is our regular monthly 4th Saturday bird walk at New Quarter. That'll be at 8 o'clock, and we'll meet in the parking lot. And I hope we have good weather. You know, this time of year it can be iffy. But yeah, and see our winter residents and other birds that may be hanging around the waters and woods there at New Quarter. And that's Saturday the 28th at 8 a.m. That's at 8 a.m.
Okay. I did, I see in the chat, there was a question of whether or not we'll do another owl prowl. Maybe. I guess we'll see how this goes. Actually, Jonathan at New Quarter Park asked us if we would do this. So we're doing some things in conjunction with them. So that's nice that we continue some things besides a bird walk. So probably the answer to that is we'll see how it goes. And if it works out, we can certainly try it again. Okay.
Should be fun. Hopefully we'll hear some owls.
Yeah. Well, you get what you get. That's birding. I did want to point out in February, the bird walk at New Quarter Park, we had a request from Cape Henry Audubon. They would like to come and join us on just a Saturday walk at New Quarter Park in February. And I said, we'd love to have them. They are open to the public, so they're welcome to come, but we'll make a special effort. Scott, we may hit you over the head with a lot of folks that day. So we'll try and have 2 folks ready to be on board to lead if we have to break it into smaller groups.
Great.
But kind of nice that we're gonna try a few things like this with other bird groups. Just an opportunity to kind of get together and share where we go. So I think that'll be fun. Let's see. The deadline for the February newsletter is January 27th. So please be, I know it's coming up fast. Please be thinking about pictures or articles or book reviews or anything you'd like to send to Mary Ellen and have that in by the 27th. I do want to remind everybody that dues are due, and you can renew online at the williamsburgbirdclub.org website, or you could, the last newsletter has a form in the back of it. If you prefer to print it and mail it in, you can do that as well. But it is time to re-up your dues. One other thing I made a note of, we really thank the two local bird stores, Backyard Birder Seed and Supply and Wild Birds Unlimited. Both of them contribute to the Bird Club. At Backyard Birder, they give members, Bird Club members, a 10% discount. At Wild Birds Unlimited, they donate an amount equal to 5% of the pre-tax sales to Bird Club members. So when you go in both those stores, please just make a point of telling them that you're a Bird Club member, and we all benefit from that. So only if you're a member, but be sure to do that. Let's see. I don't have anything else. Any board members, anybody have something they want to talk about, mention that I haven't mentioned? Oh, yeah. We got the Wingspan. It's funny, I've gotten several requests about this game. Apparently, a lot of folks got Wingspan for Christmas, and not everybody wants it or needs it. So we do have one is actually on its way to Nature Camp. And then Gary and Ann have, I think it's the
extension.
An
So
extension.
you
I think it's
to have the game.
the game, right?
It's
So-
I guess these are Oceana. It's called the Oceana extension.
Oh, so very exotic. So if I know we've got folks out there that have Wingspan and have played it, that they have figured it out. I tried it one time, and I have to confess, I need a tutor. I didn't get very far, but I know there are folks out there that have the game, and Gary and Ann, I think, are donating it to maybe the first person who speaks up. So if you are interested in getting the expansion, the Oceana expansion to go with the Wingspan game, let Gary or Ann know. And first person to speak up, I guess wins.
And we'll probably, I guess we could send it to Nature Camp also if no one wants it.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind too. Nature Camp was thrilled to hear that they had a game on the way. So that's a good repository for it if all else fails. Patty, you want to? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Pete?
I'd just like to add on the game.
Gary, you may be muted still. No.
Okay, there.
Okay.
I wanted to add that it's a bargain. I was at Walmart looking for something else and was in their game section and saw Wingspan and said, oh gosh, there's the original version. It was $60 at Walmart. So this is a bargain, folks.
This is a bargain. This is a one-time deal. So jump in if you're interested. Pete, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that in the chat, I put 2 URLs,
Okay.
2 different galleries of my photography. One about what you saw this evening, and another about a field trip I took to the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica.
Excellent. Okay.
So those are there. And I also put my email address if anyone wants to contact me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. That's great. Patty, you want to say something about our upcoming February meeting?
Yes, so we've got the joint meeting coming up with the Historic Rivers chapter. It will be on February 15th. It will be in the Williamsburg Downtown Library on Scotland Street. It's with Deb Woodard and the Aware Group, Wildlife Rehabilitators. Their title is Behind the Scenes of Wildlife Rescue and Rehabilitation and What We Need to Know About Rescuing Wildlife. So they're actually bringing animals to the library. So if you want to see the animals up close and personal, you'll need to come to the library, but it'll also be on the Zoom for those that don't come. And that'll start at 6 on the 15th of February.
Great. Thanks, Patty. In
Hey,
terms of
somebody, Nancy,
Yep.
somebody has asked for it, but they are iPhone is the name of their, so I don't know who it is.
Oh, Deborah Humphreys, maybe? Deborah, can you
Well,
confirm?
I did ask
Oh,
for
it's
it, but
Deborah?
I think iPhone is someone else.
Oh, I know Deborah is iPhone, but maybe is somebody else. Whoever that is, you will have to identify yourself to Anne or stick it in the chat, put your name beside it. If you don't, hopefully somebody will speak up. I did want to say our March meeting, we're going to have we have a board meeting coming up next week, and we are going to discuss meetings going forward. We are sensitive to everybody's health concerns. At the same time, everybody's desire to get together. So the board is going to talk about it. At least by March, the weather's starting to warm up. It's lighter, a little bit longer, and so that's to be continued. We'll let you know what the status of the March meeting and the meetings going forward are. And I can't think of anything else. Anybody seen anything that they want to tell us about? Anything fun? We did see this really cool short-eared owl last night. If you want to take a little, it doesn't give you a lot of time. This particular bird's MO is to wait until almost dark. In years gone by, we've had some come out earlier, but this guy's, he's kind of stretching it, but it's, yeah, Pete.
So a birding question for all.
Okay.
One of the remarkable things that's happened in the Charlottesville area this year is invasion by red-headed woodpeckers.
Oh,
They're being seen
nice.
everywhere.
Nice.
Never been seen before. Are you guys experiencing it also?
We happen to have a very nice local population of red-headed woodpeckers out at Jamestown Island and other places. They've been there for a very long time. So red-headed woodpeckers are pretty well established here and pretty successful. But I was just talking to somebody today, and I already forgot who said they've never seen as many red-headed woodpeckers as they've seen this year. So what you're saying apparently is a thing. I mean, I don't know if it's the oak trees and acorns, or I'm not sure what's going on, but
I don't know either. I know that my neighbor has red-headed woodpeckers. I've been here for 30 years. Never have my neighbor.
wow,
And there are other places where they're seeing 50 of them in local.
interesting.
It's-
Well, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, we certainly see them, but we've always, I guess we've seen them for a long time, but that's
Spoiled.
terrific.
You're spoiled.
Yeah, we are
Yeah.
spoiled. We definitely spoiled, Shirley.
Yeah, I was going to say on our Christmas bird count, we typically have, a dozen or a couple of dozen, right? If I remember correctly, I can't, but in Jamestown Island and the surrounding areas down there that's a hot spot. But we typically have a dozen or more on our Christmas bird count.
Yeah.
They are very, what's the word? Unpredictable here. Some places almost always have them, but most places don't. And this year,
Interesting. Well, that's pretty habitat driven, I
oh,
suspect.
of course.
Yeah. So you must have some good mature oak trees
And
coming in
dead oak trees.
and snags and yeah. Well, that's right. That's our logo bird. So we're
Oh.
very
Oh,
very proud of that
that's a
bird.
good question then.
Yeah, it's on it. In fact, if you'd like to buy a hat, you'll have a nice red-headed woodpecker on it. Shameless. Anybody else? Anybody else have anything to report or
I have a
it's
question.
nice warm weather? Yes, Mary.
I have observed what appears to be courting behavior in a number of songbirds. Have others observed that, or am I just reading into it?
We have.
Yeah,
Seems earlier than ever before, for me anyway.
oh, you said courting?
Courting, yes.
Courting,
And normally,
yeah.
I don't find this until February or the
Right.
end. And it's been going on now for almost 2 weeks. Is it because
I-
of the weather?
Probably.
I think just the kind of climate change that overall we've seen, we are definitely seeing a push for earlier breeding. And, now we have to wait and see if it plays out in terms of timing with, food supplies but yeah, I think a lot of people have reported courting behavior, early behavior. I've seen it. I was watching 2 mockingbirds today at Jamestown, and it was clear courting behavior.
Yeah, I saw two
And we've got
Carolina
one of-
birds doing it yesterday, and I
Yeah.
thought, oh, well.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that we're, as a trend, we're definitely seeing it.
Moving it earlier and earlier. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I took pictures of sanderlings mating today.
What?
Ooh,
So I don't know if that's appropriate for this time of the year for them or not.
No, Sanderling?
Sanderlings at the beach, yes.
They were fighting. They were not.
No, I've got a lot of pictures, so we'll figure it
You
out.
got my email address, okay?
I'd be happy to send you
I
a
want to see
picture.
that because I've studied sanderlings for 40 years, and
Okay,
eating at this time, they don't have anywhere to nest at this time of the year. They
Yeah.
nest in the
okay.
Right.
I'm gonna send you some pictures and you can
Great.
let me know what they were doing.
Yeah. Well, make sure they're not pornographic, okay?
yeah.
Well, but they are.
Well, they are. It's Bedlam again.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd really love to see those photographs.
okay, will do.
Okay, anybody? I don't have anything else. I would love to hear anybody's bird excitement. Oh, wait, hold on. Something in the chat just now.
Oh, actually, I misspelled my name.
Oh, please confirm 2 R's? No, Myers?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, here's another one. What owls do you hope to see? Is Scott, are you still on board? The Owl Whisperer?
Yeah. Yes, definitely barred owls. That's the first ones. I think the ones we have the best chance of seeing or hearing. Great horn is, hopefully I've been hearing great horn occasionally in my neighborhood here. I hear barred owls, once or twice a week here. Maybe, I don't know, screech owls. I've heard screech owls during the summer, but I never heard them in the winter, but it's possible, that we could hear a screech owl.
Yeah,
It's
It's
a
a little
short
early
ear
for
owl
the-
would be great. I have never seen a
Ooh.
short ear owl. That would be, where did you see the one that you saw that you were mentioning? earlier?
we were closer to Charlottesville.
Oh, okay. So
If
you
you
were more
can,
in the mountains. Yeah,
if you can bring up a short-eared owl, you're gonna get a free hat.
yeah, yeah. I don't expect that, but yeah, those are the ones. I mean, if we're super lucky, we may hear a barn owl, but I'm not expecting that.
Ooh, wow.
No, not at all. But you never know. So yeah, mostly barred and great horned.
We've got some great horns on nests at this point. So I've heard some female, that are little soft, low chit chat that calling for dinner or wondering where supper is or something. So we could definitely hear some action.
Nancy,
Deborah,
I was
yeah.
at the county building on Mainland on the farm,
Mhm.
down the gravel
Mhm.
road, and I could hear that owl in the
That
in the
great horn.
4-H woods all the
Yeah.
way across that road with the road traffic and everything.
Yeah.
And I heard a second one answering higher
Mhm.
note. Would the male be higher?
The female typically is higher.
Okay,
But
well, I did
what we're
hear
hearing
two.
now, is some of that really low, it's almost like murmuring
Yeah, it's
that females
yeah.
will do.
yeah. Well, I
it's
heard
just-
I heard
it's
two
really
of
pretty, a
them.
nice little,
That was-
nice.
It really carries. It's really something.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. Okie dokie. I see kitty cats walking on people's laps and hanging on the backs of chairs, and the cats are letting us know it's time to be done. So, okay, anybody else, or we're gonna wrap it up for tonight? Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Pete, so much. That was a visual treat for sure. Beautiful photography, and we appreciate all you're doing for all the shorebirds out there. Shorebirds need our help. So thanks, everybody. Hope to see you Saturday at Dutch Gap and Saturday night with Scott.
See you Saturday night. Yep.
He's gonna whisper up those owls for us, so it's gonna be fun.
Yep. Bye now.
Okay,
See you.
thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Take
Bye
care.
now.
Bye-bye.